ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च। श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the Friday and Saturday series on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Rūpa Goswami. We have been studying Śikṣā, but we have not yet actually began Śikṣā, which is in the 19th chapter. There is many other backgrounds before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs Rūpa Goswami in the Bhakti Tattva. And up till now, we have seen how Rūpa Goswami prepares himself to leave to Vrindavan, and there how Sanatana Goswami feels an obligation. He gives up his governmental duties and stays with the Brahmanas studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nawab visits Sanatana Goswami and is surprised to see that he is in good health. And then there is a conversation, a very friendly brotherly conversation, because the Nawab is attached to his younger brother. And then ultimately becomes angry and he arrests him. Rūpa Goswami in the meanwhile had sent two devotees to Puri to find out when the Lord is going to start to Vrindavan. And they return back. And Rūpa and Anupam or Vallabh start towards Vrindavan. And both meet Mahaprabhu in Prayag. And they are meeting and Mahaprabhu asking about the welfare of Sanatan. At that time, Vallabh Bhatt also comes and meets Mahaprabhu. And how Vallabh Bhatt, our last discussion was, Vallabh Bhatt is Lord Chaitanya visits Adailagram. Vallabh Bhatt, first of all, is impressed with these two exalted souls, although they are considering themselves as untouchable and they move back. But Vallabha sees, or Vallabhacharya sees, that they are constantly chanting the holy name. So he quotes scriptural quotations to prove how one is who is taking the holy name is Sarvatam, he is not Adham. And then the other two quotations from the Hari Bhakti Vilas also we saw. So at this point, Vallabha decides to take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Adail Gram. And while he puts them on the boat, Mahaprabhu sees the Yamuna, the black water of Yamuna, and immediately goes into ecstasy, Uddipan. It was a Uddipan for him. And jumps into the Yamuna. The devotees lift him back, and in the boat, he's dancing in ecstasy, not able to control himself. So Vallabhacharya is seeing all this. Ultimately, Mahaprabhu becomes Dhairya, and seeing the time, place, and circumstances, he controls himself. So at this point, we had stopped our discussion. So today we will continue with further the discussion. Desha Patra Deki Mahaprabhu Dhairya Hoila Adaila Raghate Nauka Asi Uttarila. So seeing the circumstances, finally Mahaprabhu became calm, and the boat was able to reach Adaila and land there. So then what happened? Let us see. We are seeing this section from 77 to 113. So Mahaprabhu visiting Adaila Gram. Text 84. Hoye bhatta sange rahe madhyana karana nija grehe anila prabhura sangitelana. Fearing the Lord's welfare, Bhaya bhatte sange rahe madhyana karan. Vallabhacharya stayed in his association. So Vallabhacharya saw the experience now, what Mahaprabhu can do when he goes into ecstasy. So fearing that, what did he do? He stayed in the association of Mahaprabhu, thinking about his welfare. Nija Grihe Anila. After arranging for his bath, the Bhattacharya took him to his own house. Prabhura Sangita Lan. So he took him to his own house. Anandita Hana Bhatta Dila Devasan Apane Karila Prabhura Pada Prakshalan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at his home, Vallabhacharya was greatly pleased. Offered the Lord a nice sitting place, Divasan, and personally washed his feet, Pada Prakshalan. So this was a traditional culture that whenever a sadhu comes to the house of a grahastha, firstly, he is before entering the house, Pad Prakshalan is done, the Aarti is done, and flowers are offered to him, and then he is invited inside. So that was a traditional culture. Text 86. Swam Swavamshe Se Kala Se Jala Mastake Dharila Nutana Kopina Baharvas Paralya. Vallabhacharya and his whole family then sprinkled that water over their heads. Mastaka Dharilas. Swamsha Sejal, that the jal which was offered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for Pad Prakashanan, he sprinkled it to all his family members. Then he offered the Lord new underwear and outer garments. Nutana, Nutan means new. Kopina Bahirvas Parayla. Gandha Pushpa Dhupa Dipe Maha Puja Kaila Bhattacharya Manne Kari Paka Karaila. Vallabhacharya worshipped the Lord with great pomp, offering scents, incense, flowers, and lamps. Gandha Pushpa Dhupa Dipe Maha Puja Kaila. And with great respect, he induced Balabhadra Bhattacharya, the Lord's cook, to cook. Pak means to cook. So he informed Mahaprabhu's servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya to cook for the Lord. Śikṣā karila prabhure sasneha yatane Rūpa gosaina dui bhaye karila bhojane. Thus, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was offered lunch with great care and affection. So here it is very important that when we especially do these 6 loving exchanges, Dadati Pratigranati, Guhyam Akhyati Prichati, Bhunte Bhojate Chaiva, Shad Vidhi Vritir Lakshanam. Rūpa Goswami, what is mentioning in text 4 of Updeshamrita, Priti Lakshanam, with lot of affection and care, it has to be done. So that affection is not on the bodily platform, it is on the spiritual platform. So the soul, Prabhupada in the Kunti Maharani's prayers mentions that the soul qualities like affection, attachment means the soul's attachment to spiritual items like Krishna and the devotees, it is there. So the affection for the soul which feels, this is the natural quality, and the affection what we feel for family members is also based on the bodily concept. So how to dovetail it in Krishna service? By having affectionate relationships with devotees and serving them with great care and affection. So here Bhattacharya, Vallabha is following that. And both Rūpa and Vallabha were also offered food. Bhattacharya she Rūpe Doila Avashesh Tabe se Prasad Krishnadas Paila Shesh. Vallabha first offered the remnants of the Lord's food to Srila Rūpa Goswami. So Vallabha gave the remnants to Rūpa Goswami and then to Krishnadas. Text 90. Mukhavasdiya Prabhura Karaila Shayana Apane Bhatta Karena Prabhura Pada Samvahana. The Lord was then given spices to purify his mouth. Now this is a tradition that after the food is taken, usually we should take some spices to purify the mouth. It is called as mukhavas. Now, this usually today in the modern world we don't do it, but it is very important that we do this mukhavas. Anyone knows what are the spices you can have after you take your prasadam? Which are the spices which you can have after taking a prasad? Which are the spices you can offer or you can have? Anyone knows can raise their hands. Yes, Kalyani Mataji.
Soft.
So then any other? Okay, Archana, Dr. Archana has raised her hand. Yes, Mataji.
It's cloves.
Cloves. Cloves is an excellent spice. Any other? One more devotee had raised his hand. I don't remember who it is. Yeah, Amal Bhaktarani Mataji. Yes.
It's cardamom also, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, cardamom also. So any of
cardamom, ajwain. There are a lot of people who take different spices after
ajwain.
Even ajwain. Yeah.
There can be also a combination of till seeds and
yes,
and ajwain and jeera, which is roasted. So all this, it has a very scientific purpose. One is it purifies the mouth, and whatever you had food, it gives an indication that the food can be now digested. And the spices which you have, it purifies them, means it cleanses the mouth and it aids in digestion also. So it's very important that this tradition too should be followed, and you should have mukhavas immediately after your prasad. Prabhu pataila tanre karite bhojane, bhojana kari aila teno prabhura charane. So Vallabhacharya, after giving Mukhavas, he himself was personally massaging the Lord's legs. See the fortune what Vallabhacharya got. The same fortune also Maharaj Prataprudra got during the Rath Yatra. He wore a dress not of a king but as an ordinary devotee and went to massage the Lord's feet and sung the Gopi Geet and very much pleased the Lord, and the Lord embraced him and he was bestowed Krishna Prem. But that kind of favor Vallabhacharya, although he massaged the Lord's feet, was not able to get. And the reasons we saw in the last class. Prabhu Patala. So while Vallabhacharya was massaging him, the Lord asked him to go and take prasadam. After taking prasadam, he returned to the lotus feet of the Lord. Bhojana kari aila teno prabhura charan. So Vallabhacharya took his also prasad and he came back to the Lord. Now, at this point, there is another incident which happens, which goes on to show the glory of what Mahaprabhu has come to give us, what he has come to bestow us. Hena kale aila Raghupati Upadhyaya Turita Pandita Bhada Vaishnav Mahashaya. At that time, Hena kale, Raghupati Upadhyaya from Tiruhita district arrived. Aila Raghupati Upadhyaya, he came. He was a very learned scholar, Turahita Pandita. He was a Pandita. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavihasini Suni Cheva Supakicha Pandita Samadarshana. So this word Pandita comes from the word Panda. Panda means, one who has a big brain. So the Jagannath, servants are called as Pandas. So they are learned. So Pandita Bada Vaishnav Mahashaya, a great devotee and a respectable gentleman. So at this point he came. So Prabhupada in the purport just gives the, what is this Tirohita? It's a combination of 4 districts in Bihar: Saran, Champaran, Muzaffar and Darbhanga. The people of this state are called as Tirutita. Tirutiya it is called. Asiteno kaila prabhura charana vandana Krishna mati rahu boli prabhura vachana. Raghupati Upadhyaya first offered his respects to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord gave him his blessings, saying, always stay in Krishna consciousness. So this was Mahaprabhu's blessing always. Krishna mati rastu. Even when Sarvam Bhattacharya, when Mahaprabhu came back to external consciousness, the first, dialogue which happened in Jagannath Puri, when Mahaprabhu came back to external consciousness, Sarvam Bhattacharya offered his pranams, Om Namo Narayana, saying, I offer my respects to Narayan, because he was a Mayavadi. And Mahaprabhu said, Krishna mati rastu. So same, blessings is giving there. Shuni anandita haila, upadhyayara mana, prabhutanra kahila, kaho krishnera varnana. Raghupati Upadhyaya was very pleased to hear the Lord's blessings. The Lord asked him to describe Krishna. Kahoi krishnera varnana. So Krishna mati rastu or Krishna mati rahu means that we should always absorb our consciousness in Krishna Katha. Machitta matkatha, machitta machgata prana, bodhayanta parasparam, kathashanti mam nityam, tushanti cha ramanti cha. So always when we are absorbed in Krishna Katha, then our mati will be always absorbed in Krishna. Nija krita Krishna lila, shloka padila, Shuni Mahaprabhura Mahaprema Veshahaila. When Raghupati Upadhyaya was requested to describe Krishna, he began to recite some verses he had personally composed about Krishna's pastimes. Hearing those verses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Nijakrita. Nijakrit means own composition. Krishna Leela Shlok Padila. About Krishna's pastimes, whatever he had composed. Hearing that, Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy. Now, this is that famous verse. Shrutim apare, smritim mitare, bharatam manne, bhajantu avabhita, aham hinandam vande, yasyalinda param brahma. So this is a very, very famous verse, which is the composition, and I think this is included, the Raghupati Upadhyaya's verse is included in Padyavalai. Raghupati Upadhyaya, the translation, recited, those who are afraid of material existence worship the Vedic literature. Shrutim apare, that is the translation of Shrutim apare. Some worship Smriti, the corollaries to the Vedic literature, and others worship Mahabharata. Spritim itare. Spritim itare means the Spriti. Spritim itare. Bharatam Anne. Bharatam Anne refers to the Mahabharata. Some others worship the Mahabharata. As far as I am concerned, I worship Krishna's father, Nand Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is playing. So who is his object of worship? Aham hi Nandam Vande. I worship Nand Maharaj. How fortunate is Nand Maharaj? Because in his courtyard, the Personality of Godhead is performing his childhood pastimes and playing, and completely under the control and the love of the Brajvasis. Yasya Linda Param Brahma. The Param Brahma is playing in the courtyard of Nand Maharaj. So I worship Nand Maharaj. In one sense, we are worshippers of Krishna in Vraj, but more than that, we are worshippers of the Brajbasis. We follow in the footsteps of Brajbasis like Nand Maharaj, Yashoda, Sridhama, Sudhama, or the gopis of Vrindavan. That is the path, because they are Ragatmika Bhaktas, eternal associates of the Lord who have spontaneous loving attraction towards the Lord. And we have to follow in their footsteps. So this is how Ragatmika Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti, I am in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj. I worship Nanda Maharaj. I worship Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is playing. So Prabhupada gives a one-line purport. This verse recited by Raghupati Upadhyaya is later included in Sri Rūpa Goswami's Padyavali. Padyavali is an anthology of prayers or poems composed by Rūpa Goswami, various poems. You know, there is Gadya and Padya. So these poetic renditions of verses are all compiled in one book called as the Padyavali. Avali means a row, like Deepavali, we say, na? Deepa means lamp, Avali means a row of lamps. That is why it is called as Deepavali. So Rūpa Goswami has composed Padyavali, where he has, spoken about all these wonderful verses glorifying Krishna and his pastimes. Text 97. आगे कहे प्रभु वाक्य उपाध्याय कहिला रघुपति उपाध्याय नमस्कार करेला. When Raghupati Upadhyaya was requested by the Lord to recite more, he immediately offered his respects to the Lord and granted his request. Kam prati katayitam ishe samprati kova pratitam ayatu gopati tanaya kunje gop vaduti vitam brahma. To whom can I speak Who will believe me? Kam katitam, kam prati katitam, katayitum. Whom I should speak? Who will believe me? Kova pratitam ayatu. Who will believe me when I say Krishna? Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead is hunting the gopis in the bushes by the banks of Yamuna. Gopati Tanaya Kunje Gopa Vaduti Vitam. Vitam means to hunt. So the Brahma, the absolute truth Krishna, what is he doing? He is hunting the gopis in the bushes of the banks of river Yamuna. So what? Whom should I tell that our worshipable Lord is the Lord who is hunting the gopis on the bank of Yamuna? These are very exalted pastimes of the Lord, which sometimes we cannot fathom. So this verse is also later included in the Padyavali. The verse number also is mentioned. Text 99. Prabhu kahena kahatana pada Krishna lila prema veshe Prabhu deha mana ayu la. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Raghupati Upadhyay to continue speaking about the pastimes of Krishna. Teho pade Krishna lila. Thus the Lord was absorbed in ecstatic love. Prema vesha Prabhura. And his mind and body slackened. Deha mana alu laila. So here is a very important point to be noted, that as we chant the Hare Krishna mantra and hear Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, and practice spiritual life, what is the effect which happens is that the subtle body undergoes transformation. The hard knots of karma bandhan by which we are bound, the soul is bound to the gross and subtle bodies, that the karma granthi or the hridaya granthi it slowly starts getting cut or slackened. So this is the sign. And Prabhupada is to give the example of just like a coconut. Inside the coconut is the coconut pulp. And the coconut pulp is, when the coconut is young, it is connected to the shell, inner shell. And when the coconut dries, the pulp dries inside and it separates itself from the shell. And then when you shake the coconut, what happens? You can see that the coconut is separated from the shell. So similarly, the soul is entangled now in the gross and subtle bodies. And by practice of spiritual life, slowly this karma granthi, or the knot, the hard knot of material existence, that will slowly be released. So his body and mind slackened. In fact, the body of a liberated soul is completely cut off from the gross and subtle connections. And that's why his body is like a sponge, or it's like a pillow. You can bend it as you want because there is no karma granthi there. So here, this is a hint given here that Mahaprabhu's body and mind slackened because of ecstatic love. Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between his body and soul. But in one sense, this is a lesson for us to understand also. So Prabhupada gives a one-line comment to this. Our minds and bodies are always engaged in material activities. When they are activated on the spiritual platform, they slacken on the material platform. So this is the hint Prabhupada is giving here. Text 100. Prema dekhi upadhyayara haila chamatkar manushya na he iho Krishna karila nirdhar. So here you can see, seeing the ecstatic symptoms, Raghupati Upadhyay, when Raghupati Upadhyay saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms, he decided that the Lord was not a human being, but Krishna himself. So this was the conclusion even Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came to when he first saw the symptoms what Mahaprabhu exhibited when he had darshan of Jagannath and when he took him to his house. But yet, because he was Mayavadi, he could not get the mercy of the Lord. It's only later on, after that 7-day conversation on the Vedanta Sutra, he attained the mercy and then he understood that, the glory of the Lord. But here, Raghupati Upadhyay was a devotee of Lord, so he could understand that these symptoms are not of a human being, but they are Krishna himself. They are Mahabhav Sarupani Srimati Radharani. So these ecstatic symptoms was what Mahaprabhu was exhibiting during this point, at this point. Text 101. Prabhu kahe upadhyay shreshta manakay, shamam eva param rupam kahe upadhyay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Raghupati Upadhyay, according to your decision, who is the foremost being? Shreshta manakay. Kai means, kaya means you say, body like that, kai. Shamam eva param rupam kahe upadhyay. Raghupati Upadhyay replied, Lord Shyam Sundar is the supreme form. Which is the supreme form? Shyam Sundar is the supreme form. Shama Rupera Vasasthana Shreshta Manakay Puri Madhu Puri Vara Kahe Upadhyay. Of all the Krishna's abodes, which do you think is the best? Shama Rupera Vasasthan. Vasasthan means where he resides. Shreshta Manakay. Kai means which. Which is the best? Puri, Madhupuri, Vara, Kahe Upadhyay. Raghupati Upadhyay said Madhupuri or Mathura Dham is certainly the best. Now, here we should understand that Madhupuri actually refers to what? Mathura Dham, but the inner meaning is what for Madhupuri? Anyone knows? Can raise their hands. Madhupuri, inner meaning is what? Yes, Sri Krishna-Kant Prabhu.
In one's heart where the Lord resides.
Pardon?
Means in whose hearts the Lord resides, the devotee.
No, Madhupuri. Madhupuri is being referred here.
Madhupuri is Madhura.
Yeah. So, actually, what is the inner meaning now of Madhupuri or Mathura? That is my question. Is Krishna's, best abode Mathura? Yes. Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandapranam. Prabhuji, I think it's the place where the sweet pastimes of Lord Krishna has happened, and that is Mathura Vrindavan. That's why it is Madhupuri.
It is Vrindavan. Actually, it is within Mathura Mandal comes Vrindavan. So it is referring to that. Because Krishna's place of residence is Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka. So the topmost form is Shyam Sundar Krishna, and Shyam Sundar Krishna resides in Vrindavan, Braj. He doesn't leave Braj. In Mathura or Dwarka, he resides in his Aishwarya feature, but in his Madhurya, pure Madhurya feature, he resides in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada makes that clear in the purport. Lord Krishna has many forms, as stated in Brahma Samhita, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Ananta, Rupam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Raghupati Upadhyay which form was the best of Lord Krishna's millions of forms, and he immediately replied that the supreme form was the Shyam Sundar form. In that form, Krishna stands curved in three places and holds his flute. The Shyam Sundar form is also described in Brahma Samhita. So Krishna in the three bending pose only exhibits this in Vrindavan, not in Mathura or not in Dwarka. So this is the reference of the Shyam Sundar form from Brahma Samhita. Premanjuna Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Those who are filled with ecstatic love for Krishna always see the form of Shyam Sundar within their hearts. Raghupati Upadhyay confirms that the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality Godhead, has many incarnations, Narayan, Narasimha, Vara and others, but Krishna is distinguished as the supermost. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Oh, Prabhupada is quoting this. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna means Shyam Sundar, who plays his flute in Vrindavan. So as I was mentioning, Madhupuri refers to the inner meaning is actually Vrindavan, because Shyam Sundar only resides in Vrindavan. He plays the Tribhanga Lalita form and he plays his flute. Of all forms, this form is the best of all. Krishna lives sometimes in Mathura and sometimes in Dwarka, but Mathura is considered the better place. This is also confirmed by Rūpa Goswami in his Updeshamrita. Vaikunta Janita Vara Madhupuri. Madhupuri or Mathura is far superior to Vaikunta Lokas in the spiritual world. So, and in the further verse it comes that Vrindaranya Mudarapani Ramana Tatrapi Govardhanam. So like that, it refers to the Mathura Mandal includes Vrindavan. So it is specifically referring to Vrindavan. The next question, my Mahaprabhu. Bhalya Pauganda Kaishore Shreshta Manakai Vyaha Kaishorakam Deham Kahe Upadhyay. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of the three ages of Krishna known as childhood, boyhood and freshhood, which do you consider best? Bhalya Pauganda Kaishore. Among these three, childhood form, boyhood form and freshhood, which is the best? And immediately, Raghupati Upadhyay says, freshhood is the best age. Rasagana Madhye Tumi Shreshta Mane Kai Adya Eva Paro Rasa Kahe Upadhyay. So among the rasas, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, among all the mellows, which do you consider best? So what is the answer of Raghupati Upadhyay? Anyone can answer before we see what is his answer. What is the answer Raghupati Upadhyay goes? Which is the best rasa among all the rasas? Anyone can answer? Yes, Sunita Mataji?
Madhurya Rasa.
Yes, it's the Madhurya Ras. It is the Shringar Ras. Especially, it is the Unnata Ujjvala Ras, the Parakya Ras, which is. Raghupati Upadhyay replied, the mellow of conjugal love is supermost. Adya Eva Para Rasa Kahe Upadhyay. Adya means the conjugal love. That is how Adya is translated. Adya is, Adi, it is the Adi Ras, it is the topmost Rasa. So we also have experience in this world. I'll just give an example to understand. When the mother gives birth to a child, the mother experiences Vatsalya Ras. Vatsalya Ras is very prominent in the relationship with the child. And the child is completely surrendered to the mother for everything. That's why it more or less very much comes to the, if you can relate anything to pure devotional service, the love of the mother and the child that reciprocation, it comes very close to pure devotional service. That's what Prabhupada said. So that Vatsalya affection is prominent in childhood between the mother and the child. Now, as the child grows, 5 years old, 6 years old, and then he starts going out of the house, then he would like to play with the friends. And then he's no more with the mother, completely always with the mother, and not much dependent on the mother. So that time, although Vatsalya Ras is there, but the Sakya Ras becomes prominent. And then as he attains youth, so his friends also become not so important as his girlfriend in this world. And the Madhurya Ras becomes prominent. And then Vatsalya also comes down in this world. And sometimes because of Madhurya Ras, when especially the man marries a girl or a woman, and sometimes to keep her happy, he can, send the parents away to some other place. So there are so many conflicts which happen because of rasa. There is disturbance in the relationships, because the wife doesn't want the parents to stay along with them, and the parents sometimes are moved to some other place. So many disturbances in the rasa happen. Why it happens? Because the Madhurya Ras is the topmost, even in this world. So other rasas are inferior. So that's why Adya Rasa Para. The Adya Rasa is the supreme. That's what Raghupati Upadhyaya replies here. Prabhu kahe bhal tattva shikaila mora eta boli shloka pade gad gada sware. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, you have certainly given first-class conclusions. Bhal tattva shikaila mora. After saying this, he began to recite the full verse in a faltering voice. Gad gada sware eta boli shloka pade. The Lord recited a verse. This is a very famous verse, and we should try to also recite this verse. Shamam eva param rupam puri madhupuri vara vaya kaishorakam deham adya eva paro rasaha. Shamam eva param rupam puri madhupuri vara vaya kaishorakam deham adya eva paro rasaha. The form of Shyam Sundar is the supreme form. The city of Mathura is the supreme abode. The Lord Krishna's fresh youth should always be meditated upon. Deham. Deham means to dhyan. And the mellow of conjugal love is the supreme mellow. So this verse is also found in the Padyavali. Premavashe Prabhu Tanra Kaila Alingan Prema Matta Hana Teno Karena Nartan. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Raghupati Upadhyaya, Prema Veshe Prabhu Tanra Kaila Alingan, in ecstatic love. So, as I was mentioning, when Maharaj Prataprudra also recited the Gopi Geet, Mahaprabhu went into ecstasy, and out of Prema, he embraced the Lord. Raghupati Upadhyaya was so overwhelmed by love, Prema Mattahana Teno Karena Nartan, and he began to dance. Out of ecstatic love, he began to dance. Now, people like to dance because, what is the reason? Because they want to feel happiness in the heart. It gives a happiness to dance. When you dance, you feel happy. Similarly, when love is naturally manifested in the heart, you would like to dance. The heart is dancing, and that's why the body also dances. But in the outside world, we dance with the body so that the heart also can experience that pleasure. But the dance of the outside world will put us into deep, deep ignorance. But that same dance, when we do in the Kirtan for the pleasure of the Lord, in the Sankirtan, that dance uplifts the soul, and we can experience the love for the Lord. So Raghupati Upadhyaya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were in their hearts experiencing love for the Lord. And that love, which was internally they were experiencing, externally manifested as a dance. So we dance out of love. And people want to experience love in the heart, and that's why they externally dance. That's why people go to disco clubs and music clubs, or they go to a picnic spot, play music, and try to jump and dance in order to become happy. But that puts them in deeper and deeper ignorance. So both out of ecstatic love are now dancing. Now see again here what happens. Vallabh Bhatta is seeing this. He's seeing this, and he's able to understand, oh, this kind of ecstatic love exhibition I have never seen. Deki Vallabh Bhatta mane chamatkar haila, dui putra ani prabhura charana padila. Vallabh Bhattacharya was struck with wonder to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Raghupati Upadhyaya dance. He even brought forward his two sons and made them fall down at the Lord's lotus feet. I think the section I have not, it is till 113. We will finish till 113 today. So this was the effect. He felt chamatkar seeing this. Now in the purport, the two sons of Vallabhacharya were Gopinath and Vittaleshwar. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Prayag in the year 1434 or 1435, that is 1512 or 1513, Vittaleshwar was not yet born. In this regard, one should see Madhya Leela 1847. So, although this verse mentions that Duhi Putra Ani, he got both of his sons and placed them at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, Prabhupada in the Madhya Leela gives evidence from Amrit Prabhava Bhashya and Bhakti Siddhanta Sarita Thakur as to when Vallabh Bhattacharya, Vittaleshwar, youngest son, took birth. He took birth after Mahaprabhu visited Prayag, 2 years later. So that is the evidence, but although this verse is speaking, so that is clarified in this Madhya Leela purport. Prabhu deki bare gramera shabalok aila, Prabhu darshane sab Krishna Bhakti haila, Krishna Bhakta haila. Upon hearing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived, all the villagers went to see him. Gramera saba lokaila. See, simply by seeing Prabhura darshane sabe Krishna Bhakta haila. They all became devotees of Krishna. So this was the effect of just having darshan of Mahaprabhu. It's not that they just became devotees, new bhaktas. They attained the highest prema bhakti. Directly, no Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anarth Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava and Prema. All these stages they just surpassed just by one darshan of Mahaprabhu. So they all became pure devotees of the Lord. Brahmana Sakala Karena, Prabhura Nimantrana, Vallabha Bhatta Tana, Sabhara Karena Nirvahana. All the Brahmanas of the village were eager to extend invitations to the Lord. Nimantran, everyone wanted to call the Lord to their house. But Vallabha Bhattacharya forbade them to do so. Vallabha Bhattan Sabhara Karena Nivarana. He forbade them. Premunmade Pade Gosaini Madhya Yamunate Prayage Chalibe Ihan Nadibe Rahite. Vallabh Bhatt then decided not to keep Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Adaila because the Lord had jumped into the river Yamuna in ecstatic love. Therefore, he decided to bring him to Prayag. So Vallabha Bhattacharya thought this is wise to do that. Yandraicha prayage yana karibe nimantrana etaboli prabhulana karila gamana. Vallabha Bhatt said, if anyone likes, he can go to Prayag and extend invitations to the Lord. In this way, he took the Lord with him and departed for Prayag. So he avoided the Brahmanas who wanted to extend invitation to the Lord. And with this reason, he said, if you want to invite the Lord, then you invite him, go to Prayag and extend the invitation. And he took the Lord and departed to Prayag. Gangapate Mahaprabhure Naukate Vasana Prayage Aila Bhatta Gosaire Lana. Vallabha Bhattacharya avoided the river Yamuna. Gangapate Mahaprabhure Naukate Vasana. Putting the Lord on the boat in the river Ganges, he went with him to Prayag. So actually the confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna in Prayag, I don't have the picture here, but the Yamuna flows from this side and the Ganga from this side. And the Prayag city is towards the Yamuna. So although Vallabha Bhattacharya said that, if you want to invite the Lord, you go and invite him in Prayag, which is on the bank of the Yamuna. Vallabha Bhattacharya, in order to avoid the crowd in Prayag, he took the boat towards the path of Ganga, not on the path of Yamuna where Prayag is located. And he took him to the path of Ganga, and then what happened? Let us see. Loka bhide bhaya Prabhu Dashashvamedeyana Rūpa Gosaira Śikṣā na Shakti Sancharya. Due to the great crowds in Prayag, Loka Bhida Bhaya. There is great crowd in Prayag. In the Kumbh Mela, crores of people come in Prayag. Because Prayag is considered as the holiest of the holiest places because there's the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna and the Saraswati. So because of this great crowd in Prayag, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to a place called as Dashashvamedh Ghat. Dashashvamedhe Yana. It was there that Lord instructed Sri Rūpa Goswami and empowered him in the philosophy of devotional service. Rūpa Gosaire Śikṣā Karana Shakti Sancharya. So this is the famous place, outskirts of Prayag, on the path of Ganga. There is a place called as Dashashvamedh Ghat. It is said that in the Satyuga, Lord Brahma himself performed Dasha Ashwamedha. Dasha means 10. Ashwamedha means, the horse sacrifices. So 10 horse sacrifices was performed by Lord Brahma at this place. It's a very, very holy place. And that's why it is called as Dashashvamedh Ghat. So at this Dashashvamedh Ghat, by Lord's arrangement, Vallabha Bhattacharya took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there, and it was there that Mahaprabhu instructed Rūpa Goswami Shakti Sancharya and empowered him with his own potency. So the Rūpa Śikṣā is going to begin now. From these verses 113 onwards, 114 onwards, before the Rūpa Śikṣā begins, what is the glory of Rūpa Goswami? How the Lord bestowed his mercy on Rūpa Goswami. And with that mercy, how later on the Rūpa Śikṣā will come. I'm just showing you sharing the screen, that the next part of Rūpa Śikṣā is, here is the overview. Lord Chaitanya's mercy to Rūpa Goswami and Sanatana. the qualities of Rupa Goswami, and how Lord Chaitanya empowers Rupa Goswami. So these verses speak before the Rupa Śikṣā begins, from 114 to 134, almost 20 verses. And then this is the real soul of this chapter, chapter 19, Rupa Śikṣā, which we will begin from next week onwards, maybe. From next week onwards, we will actually begin the Rupa Śikṣā. So all this was a background and some important lessons. Vallabhatacharya, although he met the Lord, but still he could not get that highest mercy what Rupa Goswami got. He could not get entrance into this highest rasa of Madhurya Ras. So that reasons also we will be seeing now, and we also have seen in the last classes also. So the mercy what was bestowed to Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, and the glorious qualities of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, is the section that is from 114 to 134, which we will see in the next class. So we will stop here. It is time up now. So any questions, any clarifications? In this class today, it was just Rupa Goswami, Mahaprabhu, visiting the house of Vallabhatacharya. Vallabhatacharya, with how a sadhu has to be honored and respect, saintly way, with path prakshalan, puja, and sprinkling the water to all the family members. He inspires Vallabhadra Bhattacharya to cook. He feeds the Lord, massages his feet, and then goes and takes his prasad. Raghupati Upadhyaya comes, and there is a conversation between them. And the highest rasa is, highest philosophical conclusions are deliberated there. And Mahaprabhu and Raghupati Upadhyaya experience ecstatic emotions and they start dancing. He sees this, and he's not able to handle this rasa, which, exchange, loving exchange, which both Mahaprabhu and Raghupati Upadhyaya are experiencing. So he has fear. There is chamatkar. And that's why the people also, the Brahmanas, come to invite him, although they get mercy of the Lord. They want to extend invitations. He somehow avoids their invitations and takes Mahaprabhu to Prayag. But with the fear of a lot of crowds, he takes him on the path of the Ganges to the Shashwamedh Ghat. And at the Shashwamedh Ghat, Rupa Goswami will be instructed how Mahaprabhu empowers Rupa Goswami. Shakti Sancharila. What is this Shakti Sancharila? We will see in the next class. And what are the glorious qualities of Rupa Goswami also? Many verses are being composed by Kaviraj from various literatures. That also we'll see in the next class. So any questions, any clarifications here? Now, after this whole background, we will now come to actual Rupa Śikṣā. Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned one personality, Krishna Das. Krishna Das, who is it?
Even I'm not able to figure out who is this personality, Krishna Das. Twice it has come here. It can refer to Vallabhadra Bhattacharya. Like generally devotees are Krishna Das. They are the servants of Krishna. So in that sense. Otherwise, who is this Krishna Das? Nowhere in the purport or nowhere it is being clarified. So I am presuming, it's just a presumption, that it might be referring to Vallabhadra Bhattacharya only, because everyone is one sense Krishna Das. So in that sense, it might refer to Krishna Das. This is my speculation, you can say, because there is no other reference as to who is this Krishna Das. So twice in this conversations and discussions, it has come out. Krishna Das. Exactly, it has come as Krishna Das. Is it okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Any other questions anyone has? Today there was no much philosophical discussion, but there was a background, and that background setting is being discussed. Yes, Vaishali Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, I just wanted to check. I don't know if it makes some sense. Raghupati Upadhyay is meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the first time, right?
Mhm.
But he already had that ecstatic love for Krishna.
Yes.
So is it that before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming and giving love, already devotees were having that ecstatic love?
Oh, yes. Very nice and interesting question. Yes. Yes, Raghupati Upadhyay was bestowed this highest mellow, Unnat Ujjwala Ras, because ultimately it is coming from Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri is the root of worship of Radha Krishna, and Madhavendra Puri, the seed was bought. Ankur, Prem Ankur came in this world in the form of Madhavendra Puri, and later on he gave it to his disciples, and then Mahaprabhu actually comes. Ishwar Puri, after Ishwar Puri is Madhavendra Puri. And we should also remember that this very confidential rasa is there eternally. It's there eternally since the dawn of creation. But it is very, very confidential and very rarely revealed to anyone. So it's not that before Madhavendra Puri also there were no devotees who were doing upasana in this conjugal form. There is the Krishna Leela Madhurya pastimes are described by Chandidas, Vidyapati, and Geeta Govinda of Jaydev Goswami, where the Madhuri pastimes are discussed. So they were also very exalted devotees who discussed the Madhurya Leelas of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu, in his last years, when he was in the Gambhira, deeply experiencing in internal consciousness his separations of feelings of Krishna, the only solace he got was reciting the poems of Chandidas, Vidyapati, and Geeta Govinda of Jaydev Goswami. So that which was rarest of the rarest gem, the topmost of the topmost rasa, which was very confidential, which was very rarely known, Mahaprabhu in Kali Yuga is widely distributing to everyone, whether they are qualified or unqualified. So that is the glory of Mahaprabhu. So that is how we need to understand it. I hope this is clear, Mataji? Yes, okay.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Dr. Archana Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. My question is a very basic question. The people who have recently started Krishna consciousness practice or a bhakti, so what are the signs of basic signs and symptoms of progression in the bhakti? I mean, this is in the context with the example of coconut, which we had seen today.
Example of?
Coconut, dried coconut. Once you are mature, or I mean, how am I supposed to understand I'm on the right path of a bhakti?
Yes.
I mean, developing disinterest in the material things, or what are the signs and symptoms?
Yeah. So the symptoms of how one is progressing in bhakti is, one of the symptoms is anartha nivritti. Anartha, that which has no value, nivritti means cessation of it. So we can judge ourselves before coming to spiritual life. We had interest in so many other habits which were not so healthy, which were degrading our consciousness. We had attachment to going to the movies or eating non-veg or some bad habits. And when we take up the spiritual life, we see these habits are slowly, we become rid of these habits. So drinking tea also and coffee is also, it's not so easy. Prabhupada says, it requires great determination to even give up tea and coffee. And we all see that by chanting Hare Krishna, slowly we are able to give up these habits which we are addicted to. So the more we are, addicted to seeing movies, or we have now in our heart naturally developed a distaste towards these things. When that natural distaste is coming towards these kind of activities, we can see that we are progressing in the spiritual path. Step by step, gradually, step by step, we are progressing. That means the heart is getting purified. We no longer take interest. Although in the beginning stages, we might be doing those activities out of previous conditioning or habits, out of some obligations, but our heart internally is not there in that. We don't take pleasure as we used to take pleasure before. So then you can understand slowly that anarth nivritti is happening, and it is a matter of time. The more we associate with sadhus, the more we hear Krishna Katha, the more we practice chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, gradually the anarth nivritti will happen. And with this anarth nivritti is a long stage in our spiritual life. We become serious devotees where we chant the 16 rounds, follow the regulative principles, the 4 regulative principles, and lead a life of a devotee in a devotional atmosphere, in a devotee community. And we don't take much interest at all in material activities, and we do whatever is required for our maintenance of body and soul in this world. And everything we try to dovetail in Krishna's service. So this is a sign of progression more towards the spiritual. And this is the gradual progression which happens over a period of time and years. But these are the symptoms by which we can understand there is lack of interest in pursuing material goals, material activities. There is a distaste for material activities. So this is how we can understand. Of course, the signs of a liberation, like the coconut coming out of the shell, is only experienced at very exalted stages, in the stage of bhava or nishta, you can say. At the stage of nishta, one is self-realized soul, but at bhava, one is completely attained a spiritual body, spiritual form also. That we might not experience, but with the practice of devotional service, in the beginning stages of our life also, we can feel a kind of relief from the forest fire of material existence. Bhava Mahadhavagni Nirvapanam. We can all experience the fire burning in our heart in the form of desires for material enjoyment. That ceases. Slowly, slowly it comes down. The fire doses. So there is relief we feel with the Chaito Darpan Marjanam happening. So that is the symptoms, and that are the signs we should understand. I hope it is clear, Mataji.
Absolutely, yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so we will stop here now, and we will continue now with actual Rūpa Śikṣā discussion from the next class onwards. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Rūpa Goswami Pad ki jai. Shri Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta ki jai. Hare Krishna.